Okay, being as how one of my hobbies was always getting into aquatic fish, and whenever I was real young, saltwater was really unfeasible. There were some big aquariums that were trying to pull it off and stuff. Most people were building the water out of rock salt and so on. But after breeding a bunch of fish freshwater and getting so much credit built up at shops, I got enough money to actually, for free pretty much, start setting up saltwater aquariums and trying some of the fish and corals. At first, it was just fish, and they weren't even allowing corals in, and so on. And they started making better synthetic salts, like Instant Ocean and some other brands that came in. And Kent Industries came in, and it actually worked with the government to try to form something that was exactly like seawater, and so on. And people use this for many purposes, but one purpose that this got used for, in the Orient especially, was for culturing pearls and doing it aquaculturing and doing it indoors. And of course, that culture also is heavily into aquariums, as well as America is also in many cultures. But saltwater is somewhat unique. What we're looking at here is a giant clam. Most of these are in um, a Tridacna family that's over the top of the genus, and then you get different ones. This one is known as Gigas, which in Latin means giant, and you can't tell how big it is from this picture right here. But I'll give you an example. This little bush-like looking thing that's right here at the bottom appears to be a Stylophora coral. I used to get them some nice ones that were like a hot pink color with purple onto them too, all around on the crest and the new growth. And whenever you turn it to just the blue lights, it just really glow. In fact, a lot of these corals, they can't even show you a way that they would look to your eyes with that blue light on them. It's like trying to take pictures of black light type stuff, because it is on the edge of the ultraviolet, and a lot of the blue in the ocean is because of that. Because at depth in the ocean, all of the red light and the orange yellow dies out real quick. And while you look at the sun and it seems real yellow, it's a full spectrum sun, right? But the scattering of that light's the reason the sky is blue, and it's also a major component of why the ocean looks blue. So this thing right here is about 3 foot across, because that Stylophora, looking at the size of its barbels and its growth and knowing them real well, this thing is not quite the size of a basketball. And this thing is probably 3 foot across. And you see these blurbles and dots and colors around on it. Well, some of these dots around on its arm are actually eyes, and they can detect light. Now, there's a lot of fish like triggerfish and things that have a biting type of behavior, where they'll chew on corals or try to kill shrimp or even eat clams and scallops and things. And a clam like this is very enticing. And so if they have a photoreceptor in them, and if you cause a shadow to go over the top of them, they collapse real quick. And it happens real quick. They'll just go poof out that little valve hole that you see here, and all the water that he's been slowly puffing in and out by going open and closed and open and closed. He doesn't go all the way closed. He sits open. Why does he sit open? Well, he's photosynthetic. All the color and swirls you see in here are zooxanthellae, and it's type of algae. And so you could think of it like trees, where they have chlorophyll on the leaves that's helping as a sugar that's made off of growing off of the sunlight. But then it's also filter feeding out of the water. Well, they have roots to suck it up in. These guys are living in the water. So it's that simple. But look at some of these beautiful ones. Now, this is a giant clam, and you don't get these in the hobby. You'll see them at giant exhibits and stuff like that, and they'll be sitting in there. And usually they try to get 1 foot, 2 foot, rarely 3 foot at once and stuff. And they get real old. If one of these dies in the exhibit and they can't get it out real quick, the rot of itself will kill everything in the exhibit. So, because it's a huge chunk of meat. In fact, a lot of third world countries eat these, from Palau to Thailand to a lot of places. But let's look at some of the pictures of these. Now, this is embedded in the rock, and this would be one that's only about 3 inches long. And you could see in the other one they had this wiggle, wiggle, wiggle of form out of it, right? That looks like little crescents. But that's because the skeleton does that. And this is one of those clams that has a leading edge where it opens and closes at, where it goes back and forth, sawing, up while the other one's down, down while the other one's up, and it fits together. It can actually suck itself totally in, but I doubt many of the pictures will show that. but you can see down inside that bivalve and this tiger color that's on there, and they call this a tiger stripe depending on what its color, and this is an ultra powder blue tiger stripe, right? They have other ones where the background really doesn't show much and there's just these violet or purple stripes that are on it. And this is in a daylight, and it even looks like it was taken with a picture of a flash. If you were to have just the blue lights on, you don't see the black background here or in that little one there, and all you see is this glow effect, and it's real neat. And there's not a lot of blue corals in the hobby, but you have to have a whole lot of light to keep these. They don't grow very deep in the ocean. They're semi-photosynthetic. The other things they eat are from phytoplankton, like I talked about recently, which could, in the way that we culture it to grow these and other things, we found that they can be a good food for people too, like algae can be in things, but also that we can replenish the ocean and keep them from having bad problems. And because it starts the chain of life in the ocean, it'll help it all out as an ecosystem. But in endeavor, phytoplankton eats carbon dioxide, and so it is a lessener of that. If you look at some of these guys right here, they're real gorgeous. And there's two different kinds that are here. Notice how this has these flutes on the side of it that are real spiky and stick out. See these little flutes, these little sconces on here? Well, each one of those is a growth ring of about a year in time, and then it starts to grow more and then flops out again, and this is how the petals are formed, where it goes back and forth. But you see how this has a bunch of big ones that stick out, whereas ones like this one, or this one right here especially, don't really have any at all, but a bunch of them. And this is a Maxima clam versus a Crocea. So Tridacna Maxima, Tridacna Crocea. There's Durasa clams and so on too, and they have a slightly different form, and usually not weird wild colors like this, and not solid blues. But you can see there's variations on a theme, and while one might stand out to you right now, say you wanted to get 2 or 3 in your aquarium, well, you'd want to get one of those ultra bluish ones. You'd want to get one of those black and gold ones with the blue in it, or one with a lot of gold. And of course, seeing them under actinic lighting, this thing is green totally. There's a neat effect to these too. If you're looking down on them, they'll be a different color than you're looking at them from an angle of about 45 degrees. Even looking into your aquarium, they'll be slightly different. As you squat down, it'll change hue from blue to green, depending on if it's green or blue. And also whenever you go up and start to look over the top, and they can even change to blue to purple in that situation. So it has a light refraction deal. And again too, all you have to do is pass your hand over them like this, and they suck in real quick, and it's pretty neat. And so I used to get in all kinds of variations, these ultra blue clams, and they have all these swirls in them, and these black dots around on the side, a lot of those are eyes, and they are photoreceptors, you know, and like a fly or whatever has millions of eyes, and these things have a bunch of eyes, and they're for protection, and you can see them shut down. And they farm them, and you get them in big groups like this, but as they farm them, there's a lot of variation on a theme that happens in them, and they'll shoot pictures of them, and you go through the pictures, and you go, give me that one, give me this one, give me this one, and try to get a good selection off of it. Some of them have a little green fringe on them, and these weird mosaic, almost Sanskrit writing written on them in blobs that are real neat. Other ones have speckles like this, or a gold rim like you see on it here. And some of them have a gold line put onto them that almost looks like it's been smeared like a paintbrush. It's onto them. And this thing, you can see those little bluish lightning speckles all over it a little bit that are semi-connected. Whenever you have this, not under daylight, but just the blues, all you see is little blue lightning speckles, and then this bright gold that's on top of it. And to your eyes, the blue speckles are down deep inside of it a little, and the gold is way up on the surface, like somebody literally did just paint it there. Real exotic, kind of neat. There are other one, leopard and tiger patterns they have here, and you can see why they call it such. And it has little blobs and dots all over it. It's a form of gold Maxima clam, and for Maximas, they're usually blue-green. And in this one, what's neat is there's a little tremagoby that's right here. Couldn't be a centimeter long. Got to be about half of that. And also on the live rock here, you can see all these little tunicate sponges that are growing here and here and here and here, and all this live rock that's popped out with stuff. I don't know, this may be even out in the wild. Here's another picture that's gorgeous. You can see the blurbs in them. And if has anybody seen, like, when people do a lot of pottery, they can take these pottery paints that have these little chips in it that feels like they've got grit into it, but each grit blurbs and melts, and it's like little pieces of glass whenever they do it, and they put it on as a glaze, and whenever they melt, it'll glaze, and you get these swirls and colors and stuff, and it looks tie-dyed-ish and everything. And that's what this always reminds me of, is things like that, and some kind of magic genie in a bottle situation. Like I said, lots of color variations on a theme that you get, and they can grow to be quite big. Different ones, different sizes. I've literally had a Jurassic clam grow to be almost 2 foot in an aquarium that we had, and with a customer also at different times. But Maximas only seem to grow about 8 to 10 inches, maybe. They'll max out there. And whenever they're culturing these and growing them out like this, it's rare to get a 3-inch one or anything bigger that's got any decent color to it, because they really got picked through whenever they were considered 2.5-inch versions. And rarely do they get them to grow out to 3. You can see a cluster of them that you put together and stuff. And this is at one of the distributors, the ones you would pick from. But there's another one of those giant ones, and it just has little streaks and orange blotches in it, and some gold and green around the edges and everything. But there are stories about, especially Australian divers, whenever they found these giant clams, that they would be out there getting abalone and things like that, braving it around places that have great whites in the water and stuff. And the great white didn't get them, and a stingray didn't get them. What would happen was they would push off the bottom to go back up to the surface, but in doing so, they would step right in one of those clams, and it would instantly close on their leg, and they won't let go. You'd have to kill this thing for it to finally let you let go, and it's hard to kill it whenever the shell is closed in any way, shape, or form. In fact, an easy way to kill it is from the bottom where it's attached to the rock, to gig up in there, for that just loses all of its tendon parts and stuff. But you couldn't do that, and especially if your leg was attached to it. And so these divers could get really in trouble real quick with it. But I just thought I'd show some of these. Now, again, you can see most of these are greens, and a bright lime green too, but there's a few blue ones in there. And there are ones that have violet and purple and gold, and rims that are one color, and then lightning in the middle, like this one, or just lightning blue streaks and so on. And they had cool little names for each one. I like this one right here. They call it a pinwheel design because it has alternating dashes of one color or another. This would have been a lime and white pinwheel, or creamsicle lime pinwheel, or things like that. They would start to name them. But kind of cool when you look at them in a cluster and want to be together, and you have a hard time choosing one sometimes, but you got to just choose one. And then after you have that, you want a contrast, and something that's slightly different, and then something that's slightly different, and something that's slightly different, and go off of that. There's a Jurassic clam, blue-rimmed Jurassic clam, and that's called the peach version, whereas it has a lot of scribble. Instead of just being tan, it's actually a golden, and under that blue light it will phosphoresce. That's gorgeous too, with its electric lime look. There's another picture of that same one before. By the way, that's a type of brain coral, kind of like those acants I was talking about, but a different variation, like the war corals and so on, and it's dead. That's what it would look like, totally receded and dead. There might be some life in it, as you still see some brown down in it, but it's pretty much receded and dead. Corals will sting and fight each other too, so you never know how that's happening. But gorgeous scribbles. There's another one of those peach Durasas, but a different version. Same. Actually, that was Crocea. Blue tiger. Variations on a theme. And no two are exactly alike. That's a picture of that same one from a minute ago. There's these teardrop Maximas, and they have these little teardrops all over the place. And some of them are even red spotted in there, and purple that are in, red and orange spotted. There's ones that are gold and red and orange and green spotted. with a trim around it, and those are real expensive. By expensive, I mean some of these guys have been showing you here in the $200, $300, and $500 range, and they aren't just a, this is a bland price, but they have grades of being ultra, and so you get something like this, and while I used to get them at a great price and sell them sometimes for $169, $199, you'll see it for $299 everywhere, and if it's the same thing with a goldish rim around it, it might be $399. That's a cool different color for them right there. Hopefully we'll be able to see one. That's one neat too. It has dashes all in it. And again, that's with the daylight on, with all the blue lights off, or only the blue lights on and all the daylights off. All you see is what is blue. That purplish just disappears. You don't see that black light effect. Real green and blue. There's some nice peach durasas, but you can see the variations on a theme that they can have too. There's one all closed in, and so when it closes in, you can see it's inset into the rock. This must be a wild picture, for it's far too inset to be anything that grew in captivity. Here's some that you can see growing wild on a ledge. Some black and blue ones. There's a gold tiger stripe. This looks okay to you now, but if you were to have that under just the black lights, all you'd see is gold tiger striping, and you wouldn't see any of the other background. Same thing with here with lime green. Durasa again. There's a type of brain coral behind it, similar to that one that was dead. And you can see the fire and the blue of that versus the other corals that are around there, so it's hard to get a picture of one and what they really look like. There's a giant again. That's got to be over 2 foot. I liked ones like this, but of course you don't want only ones like this, but I liked ones like that because it's so galaxy-ish, and 3D looking. That had a cool one. It just seemed like it double passed it. Yeah, where the kind of two-tone green, but then it's got a gold rim going down it. That's always prized. And everybody wants the blue ones, of course, the electric blue. But after you have one, you want to complement in some other color. There's a giant, but you can see a lot of times they're just really not that colored. If you had just the blue lights on, you'd get some decent color out of it. Tiger stripes. Ooh, that's nice. So much gold and blue. LA Lakers looking. Scribble. I think we saw that one before. Look at that. That's another one of those melted ones. Big time. There's one with some zoes and stuff around it. So you can see how they complement things. Look at that color and that tiger stripe. And again, that's daylight. I want to see if we can get a picture of one of those odd ones that's just black and white, or some of the other colors they have of them. There's a giant that has good color for one of those 2-footers. Here's some of them just growing out, and that isn't a good picture, but they have a lot more color than what appears there, like some of these shots show. Bullseyes all over this one. That's real cool. Ooh, that's just all messed up. Doesn't know what it wants to be. Sometimes they're growing deep down into corals like this, and the divers have to cut them out of there. And they have to make sure they don't hurt the foot. There's a gold durasa. Yeah, I like the ones that look like that right there. But there's a lot of variations on a theme, and the super scribble has always been my favorite too. And I remember when first ones getting in, and a lot of variations people had never seen. And every time I'd get in 10 of them, 2 or 3 of them would be like, wow, whoa. You'd have to let them open up. They'd be real skitsy at first, and they would barely breathe and respirate. And you'd see some color. Oh, this is green. And then it'd open up, and you'd see, oh man, something like this. So anyhow, I just thought I'd share that with y'all. And something about clams. And it kind of goes with phytoplankton. It's another coral creature that people don't often think of or really give credit for. And but it looks pretty neat. The one that everybody always thinks of is, of course, like oysters and stuff. Look at the bullseyes on that. and think of oysters and how they could make a pearl. Where this doesn't make a pearl, it sure has a gorgeous effect. And other people know of like abalone, and how abalone, is real shiny, and it's like the inlay on guitars a lot of time, or the mother of pearl, if you will. You're looking back through some of these. There's a giant below a diver, so you can see how the big ones get to the smaller ones. And when it's closed up, see how it's wiggly mouthed? That's totally closed, right there. So let's see if I can get that one more color for them I'm talking about here. And again, the wiggle mouth, that's a giant. This is the Crocea, all dead, closed up, and just the way the skeleton or the left behind shell would actually look. Man, look at some of these colors though. And all those different corals, you'd have something like this as your reef tank, and it would have all kinds of different corals in it, whereas these are just variations on a theme of a certain kind. You can have all different colors and snap it, man, and oh man, it's just, you wouldn't believe what some of them look like. I'll have to do some other pictures. There you go. See, something on the line of that right there. That's what I've seen called as a panda, or a china. It's made out of china in some way, or black and white, giving it a panda effect. Looks like the colorations on a sea snake to me. Jaw dropping though. This is a variation that you only seem to come from Samoa and Marshall Islands, so it's rare to even get permits. They only have a certain amount that come out each year out of each of these locations. And CITES, it's Continental International Trade of Endangered Species. They keep up with how many you can do of this, so it's not just some old hog freak out. And because the want of them, that's why a lot of people have taken to growing them indoors. They get some and they grow them indoors till they get 3 or 4 years old, and they can start spawning those, and they breed and they get a whole lot of them off of it. They may use illegal hormones to get them to kick and spawn, but hey, je ne sais pas, whatever happens, happens. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. Just thought I'd bring you something with a little different flavor, even though you've thought of a lot of things about oceans and corals. Gonna throw something else at you. Peace.